I've owned literally every style of plastic boat. Now, I'm not saying I've owned every plastic boat, but every style, including tri-hulls like the Water Tender, the flat bottoms like the Sun Dolphin American 12, the Pond Prowler 10, those are the pontoon styles. I've even owned the pontoon paddle boat styles. And of course, there's different levels of quality throughout those different types. But overall, today we're going to talk about every single style and type of plastic boat and which type of boat is perfect for you, because the Pond Prowler 10 and the Sun Dolphin American 12 are two very different style and feeling boats. So they're for different people. Let's get into it. And I apologize, they are mowing around me right now. It is what it is. But the Pond Prowler 10 was my second tiny plastic boat that I've owned, and that thing is truly, really awesome. Now, the thing with that boat is, of course, it is going to be a smaller boat at only 10 foot versus 12 foot like this one right here. It is a pontoon style, like a catamaran, so it is significantly more stable. It's like the difference between a bass boat versus a pontoon boat on the lake. It's just a smaller scale, right? So if you have two pontoons, of course, it's going to be more stable than one tippy flat bottom, right? So there's going to be less room. You can still fish two people, but it's really good for people in smaller bodies of water because it has a 3.5 horsepower rating, which means that you're not going to put a 10 on it. You're not going to put a 9.9 on it. I run a 5 on my Sun Dolphin American 12, pushes me about 14 miles per hour when I'm loaded down with just one person. And I put the 5 horsepower on the Pond Prowler 10, and it did scoot. But it's a slower hull. It is not meant to go fast. It is perfect for small lakes, big ponds, stuff like that. Yes, you can take them out in the bays. When I first got mine for the first year and a half of its life, it was exclusively used in open bays in Panama City and Panama City Beach. So you can absolutely use it there. It does handle chop and boat wake pretty well. But like I said, it's more compact. So you're gonna take less gear. You're probably not gonna take a cooler, live well, your buddy in his 5 rods each, right? So you gotta limit it down, very minimalistic fishing. And but I used it a ton. I fished 2 people on it. I mean, I've taken that boat out hundreds of times. Extremely stable. The swivel seats are very comfortable. And although it is small, the swivel seats make it comfortable. You're above the water and you can turn and cast in opposite directions. So, you know, like the Johnboat, it has a bench. So it's harder to turn around and do that stuff. So the Pond Prowler 10, small bodies of water, slower moving, and if you want to take less gear. Also, it is the ideal boat for truck bed launching as it's only 10 foot. The Sun Dolphin American 12 and a lot of the more modern trucks that have big cabs and small truck beds, it can be a little bit more cumbersome. You can get a bed truck extender, but obviously they make an 8-foot Pond Prowler 10 model, which is the solo version. It's basically the same concept, still really stable. It's 8 foot, still a pontoon, same basic idea, but the Pond Prowler 10, in my opinion, is the way to go. It's about $800, and it's a little bit more expensive than the Johnboats because this Johnboat at Bass Pro is $630, with the Pond Prowler 10 at Bass Pro being $800. And but overall, it's a good option. Easy to lift and carry. It's lightweight, about 100 pounds, similar to this boat right here. Today's video is happily sponsored by Today's video is happily sponsored by the First Power Pro onboard marine battery charger. Now, what is special about this battery charger is that it charges AGM, lead acid, lithium. It's waterproof. It can be onboard. Basically charges every battery I have in this garage that is 12 volt. It charges my marine batteries, my truck, and car batteries. How awesome is that? This is a 10 amp charger, which will charge a 100 amp hour lithium trolling motor battery if it was completely dead at 0%, all the way to 100 in only 10 hours. Also, something that I really appreciate that it comes with is the different adapters. You have the standard alligator clips, which is just quick and easy. In certain battery boxes that I have, this is a much better option for the terminal, so I don't have to get a screwdriver out. And some of them, I have the wing nut quick-ons, so the actual full circle connectors will charge it significantly faster than just touching it with the alligator clip. So I do like how it comes with multiple options. And like I said, this is actually an onboard marine charger, which means that it's waterproof, IP68. This is the only battery charger that I have that is waterproof. It also has a force mode, which actually charges dead batteries when they are lower than 1 volt. It also has auto repair mode and advanced diagnostics. It will actually automatically start the repair once you plug it in. It has an integrated thermal sensor that detects the ambient temperature and alters the charge to eliminate overcharging in hot climates and undercharging in cold climates. That's pretty awesome. You can click the first link in my description to check out the First Power Pro 10 amp marine waterproof 1-bank battery charger, and it's actually really affordable. Now let's move into the Johnboats, anywhere from the $600 to $800 range. Now these are going to be faster boats, less stable, and more room. Personally, my favorite style is the Johnboats. I can put my 5 horsepower on it in my GPS spot lock trolling motor and still get about 14 miles per hour loaded down with fishing and filming gear and food and all that different types of stuff. And so I like it because it can still fit in the truck bed. I have a 6.5 foot truck bed laid down. You got another foot on the tailgate, so I can put it in my truck bed no problem, and I can load all my gear inside of it because, you know, it is a Johnboat, so it's like you've got the gunnels right here, and then it's basically a pit versus the Pond Prowler 10, which is more level, it's more flat. So you can go faster. 2 people can fish it more comfortable in a different way. You have more room to stand up and fish, so you can stand, but if you prefer sitting, the Pond Prowler might be for you. I've used this also in open bays, lakes, small lakes, and it's just a good medium-sized boat because it does have up to a 6 horsepower transom rating, and I've seen people put 9.9s on them. 9.9 two-stroke, you can put 15 two-strokes because 2 strokes are lighter. So be careful with that. It is rated for a 6, and I use a 5, and I get around just fine with my Honda 4-stroke. But they're going to be cheaper, less stable. You can carry more things. It's still going to have a 2-person limit. You're not going to want to carry 3 people, so that's, you know, still same amount of people. You can still truck bed it. Bed extender, even with the short beds, you can still get away with it just fine. Weighs about 110 pounds, which is cheaper than aluminum. Has a 500-pound weight capacity, which so does the Pond Prowler, which is more than aluminum as well and cheaper than aluminum. So the Johnboat is better for a little bit bigger bodies of water, people who don't mind standing up and fishing and maybe want to take a little bit more gear and go faster with the cost of stability. Next up is the water tender dinghy style tri-hulls. Now this was my very first plastic boat. Mine was the water tender. It was about 9.4 foot long, and this is not a good fishing platform. It's a little bit too much for 3 people, although I think it has or 2 people. I think it does have a 3-person rating. The tri-hull does make it a little bit more stable versus just being a regular flat bottom, so I will give it that, but it's lightweight, super compact, easy to store. Water tenders are good from running from your sailboat or your yacht to shore. Not so much for fishing or pleasure, so I wouldn't really recommend that if you're looking for, you know, if you're looking for a Pond Prowler, you're looking for a Johnboat, I certainly don't think the water tender is for you, but if you're watching this and it's like, well, I don't fish, I don't hunt, you know, I don't need to do any of that. I just need to get to shore from my sailboat, from my yacht, or whatever. Then the water tender is a good option for you. You can hoist it up on shore, just leave it up on the boat or leave it. But in my opinion, I think inflatables are definitely a way better way to go in terms of dinghies. So even for dinghies, I wouldn't necessarily recommend the water tender because there are better options. It just says it's not the best at anything is what I'm trying to say. Yes, it can fit in the truck bed. Yes, it can fit on the top of your car. It is relatively stable, surprisingly, for its size due to the tri-hull design, but I also just don't really recommend the water tender, and they're kind of expensive. I don't really know how much, but they're, you know, in the Johnboat too. They're not cheaper than the Johnboats, I'll tell you that much. But finally, we have the pedal boat. Now, these are usually very affordable. They have up to a 5-person capacity. You can get up to, like, 800 pounds on these things. They're harder to modify. You know, we had a video series on the main channel where we took a trolling motor, put it in the, rudder control shaft, so we motorized it. But even then, you can't trim it up. You can't pull it, all the way out of the water. If you get into some grass or you break your shear pin, you got to go to shore and you got to flip it on its side and you got to deal with it that way. You can't just trim it up, right? So, they're still relatively light. Same thing. They're super, super stable with the pontoons. They're usually wider than the Pond Prowlers, but they're pretty short, usually about 8 foot. But, I wouldn't really recommend those when you could just get a Pond Prowler for a little bit more money. And yeah, so the pedal boats, water tenders, don't really recommend. Johnboats, love them for bigger bodies of water, going faster, carrying more gear, good for hunting. And Pond Prowlers, the pontoon styles, if you're looking for smaller bodies of water, slower moving boat, more comfortable maybe on your back, and certainly more stable. So the Pond Prowler 10, although is a 2-person boat, makes a phenomenal solo boat. And then of course you have different types of these. You have the cheaper Pond Prowler, then you have the more expensive Bass Raider XE, then you have the even more expensive twin troller options. That's like, it's a multi-$1,000 boat. So we're mostly talking about styles today. In particular, makes and models can be a different video. We'll have to do dedicated styles and segments, just the best type of pontoons, just the best types of plastic flat bottoms and stuff like that. But like I said, we're just talking about styles today. So anyway, I hope I helped you in your boat buying journey. If you'd like to see a lot of adventures, I highly suggest you check out my main channel. This is more for reviews and more in the garage kind of talking nonsense about tiny boats because I love tiny boats. And again, thanks to today's sponsor. I hope you guys got some value. Tight lines, and God bless.